Hey everybody, welcome to the Elseworlds Exchange. I am Sal.
And I'm Tiffany.
Sorry, no Joel today, as per usual, because we alternate weeks.
That's right. And also for this topic, he's not from Jersey.
And has no qualifications to talk about this topic. Also, the dude's on like 1,200 podcasts.
Yeah.
So let him sit one out for once. Today we're going to be talking about the films of Kevin Smith, which is a dicey topic. Even if you are a fan, because you're usually encountering somebody who hates him or hates his movies or some combination thereof, which is kind of fun because, at least the beginning of the Kevin Smith movie slate is all about kind of being, underfoot and being kind of like a member of the working class or a member of like a group of people who are treated like crap.
Right, and his films have always been reflective of where he is
in his life and in his head, exactly. So, in that case, what I thought we'd do is we just chat about the movies. The dude is very, very busy, and he's a veritable renaissance man of the, the creative world. He does podcasts, he does college talks, he does comics, TV shows, web series, he has a YouTube channel, he does a lot of stuff.
Yep.
But for this episode, we're just going to kind of focus on the movies themselves, and maybe, like, the person, Kevin Smith, in relation to those movies, not necessarily about like his podcasting career. Okay. That's like a whole other show.
Yeah.
It's Kevin Smith, the podcaster. We're going to try and talk about just the 13 flicks that he's made and, see where we go from there.
Okay.
And how they relate to us and you as well. So I guess we should start off by talking about where and when we first encountered Kevin Smith movies and how they came about and what our first initial reactions were. Tiffany, what's your experience with them?
I had a really rocky start because if you could believe this, not everyone who lives in New Jersey knows who Kevin Smith is.
No, it's very true. I never knew who he was until I was, I think, a sophomore in high school.
There you go. Mine was much later than that, and the first movie I saw of his was Dogma. Mm-hmm. Now, I like Dogma now, but when I saw it, it wasn't in theaters. Some other friends of mine had already seen it, and they put so much hype on it that there was no way it could live up to what they had presented.
Right.
So when I saw it, I was like, whatever. Like, I really didn't care this way or that way, simply because of the way I entered into it. Because if I just found it, they were like, hey, we're going to throw this on, whatever, that would have been one thing. I could have just enjoyed it. But they did that thing where they were laughing at a joke that was coming. So I really couldn't enjoy the movie.
That really is one of the most disruptive movie viewing experiences, and watching a movie that is somebody's favorite that they've seen before and that they really, really want you to enjoy.
I know, right?
Because they can't help themselves. I've been guilty of it myself, where I'm just so excited about the movie, I'll watch other people watching the movie, or I'll like preemptively laugh at a joke, or preemptively cringe at a moment that might be particularly wince-inducing.
Yes, I've had that experience a few times, but with this I was like, all right, my enjoyment of Kevin Smith wouldn't come until on my own I discovered Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Which is kind of funny because it's kind of like the end of that era of the View Askew universe, as it was referred. But, it's funny, a lot of people's first introductions to Kevin Smith movies, from what I've discovered over the years, is Jay and Bob's Strike Back.
Yep.
Because it was kind of like the first kind of national stage Kevin Smith movie.
Right.
And the literal, plethora of stars from that time. It's a perfect time capsule of 2001.
I didn't see it in theaters.
Oh. Well.
But I did. That was
But you caught it afterwards.
That was the first one I saw without anyone amping it up too much. It was something. It was kind of a self-discovery. It was something I got to see with friends. You know what I mean? It was the right way to see a Kevin Smith movie.
Yes, absolutely.
What about yours?
I feel like I must have seen Chasing Amy first.
Really?
It was on HBO, and I remember vividly the scene was Banky and Holden were screaming at each other, and I was like, wow, this is every independent movie I've ever seen. It was just two bearded men screaming obscenities at each other in a dimly lit room with a handheld camera. And I was like, I don't want to watch this. And I turned it off immediately.
Wow.
It was also, I think it was really visceral. And I didn't understand it, because the Holden and Banky's apartment is bizarre, because they have, obviously it's because it's two artists that live together, but they have art all over the walls, and I think they have graffitied each other's bedroom doors, and I didn't understand what that meant at the time. And I'm like, what is this? The first Kevin Smith movie that I outright saw was Clerks. That was given to me on a bootleg VHS tape that my in high school best friend's brother had. He was like, "You gotta watch Clerks, it's great." And I'm like, "All right." And I threw it on, and it was black and white, and I was like, "No." And it was really, really vulgar, and I'm like, "Yikes." But for whatever reason, and I don't remember how it grabbed me, but I sat through the whole thing, and by the end of it, I was like, "This is fucking awesome," and it irrevocably changed me as a person.
You don't say.
Yeah, you believe it or not. But having seen Clerks, I was a freshman in high school, and they threw it on. I had avoided it for a little while. He kept pushing it on me like Dogma with you.
Yeah.
He's like, "You gotta watch Clerks. You gotta watch Clerks." And then I'm like, "Look, give me the tape, and I'll watch it on my own time." And at that point, I had set up in my bedroom in high school just like a viewing center. My folks had these old, really like tall speakers for this old hi-fi system they had from like 30 years prior, and I set them up behind my bed, and so I ran them through like a system to my television in front of my bed, so I just had like sound.
Okay.
It wasn't like a real surround sound system, it was just like sound came from every angle. It was mostly just so I could watch Star Wars.
Right. Okay.
But I threw it on my little like system that I had set up, and then I'm like, boom, Clerks, and it was unbelievable. I could never believe that regular looking people could be in movies. I couldn't believe people said things like that.
Right.
I was always very afraid to speak my mind and speak, kind of frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I was always very inhibited, especially from like my development from like preteens all the way through to freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
I was very like stoic and rigid and not interested in like expressing myself too much. And I actually I earned the nickname Spock from a friend's older sibling, who would get hammered at our friend's house all day. And then when he'd be like, "What's going on, man? You got to learn about chicks in life." And I'm like, "Right." And he's like, "You're like Spock." And so but Kevin Smith kind of cracked the Spock, the Vulcan mold.
I like that.
And
Good.
brought me out of my shell. And I was like, I want to be like these people, and not necessarily not in a copycat way, although I'm sure in the beginning it was like that. But I was like, I have feelings and dreams. I would like to express them to the people that I care most about, which is what Randall and Dante, for a lesser extent, do. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So you started at the beginning.
I started at the beginning. And I think the next one I saw was Mallrats. I think I kind of saw them in order.
Wow.
Because I remember saying I saw Clerks, and somebody was like, "Oh, well, you should watch Mallrats." And I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because it's part of a whole thing." And it was funny, they didn't say anything about Jay and Bob. So we throw on Mallrats, and I'm watching it, and it's fun. I'm like, this is kind of fun.
Right.
This is interesting. Then suddenly, Jay and Silent Bob show up, and I'm like, what the hell's happening? And of course, at that point, I had dropped off reading comics. I was not, reading them regularly, but I had, of course, grown up reading them, and I was a huge fan of them, for a long time. And at that point, I was getting more into movies, and I kept my comic book fandom kind of in the closet.
Right.
And so when Jay and Bob came up, my comic book brain came on. I'm like, oh my god, it's an interconnected universe. This is amazing. I was immediately involved. Like,
right.
I was already kind of hooked by Mallrats, but then once Jay and Bob showed up and I found out it was all part of a long, and then somebody else, when I said, "Oh my god, Jay and Bob are in here," they're like, "Yeah, and they're in the next one too." I'm like, "There's another one." I was hooked. I'm like, "Okay, I'm in." And I didn't really like Mallrats as much as I liked Clerks.
Right, even though you had the comic book
even though it was for
and
comics,
even though like it has such a connection to comics.
Yes, but
especially with a certain
cameo by the man. Yeah.
Yes.
But that was the next one, and then I think after that, I avoided Chasing Amy, and I saw Dogma next, and I saw that in theaters.
Okay.
We saw that. My best friend and I went to we wanted to see Dogma, but End of Days was coming out. So, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And I was like, crap, what movie am I going to go see? Because at that point,
you're like,
number one, no license. Number two, my folks are not going to take me to the movies more than once a week.
Right.
So the way we worked it out was we watched both movies. We scheduled it such that End of Days would end, and then we'd have 5 minutes to use the bathroom, and then Dogma would start up, and that was at the AMC in Rockaway. Not the AMC that is now in Rockaway, the big stadium seat, the one where the Best Buy is now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, way back in the day, our mall had inner theaters and outer theaters.
Yes.
And you had to not screw that up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would hoof it.
Or you missed the movie.
Yeah.
I will say that was also awesome because I never went to that theater. I always went to the Cinema 12 in Parsippany.
Oh,
which
I
sucks.
never went to that. I went later on after they demolished the AMC.
Oh yeah, but I would always go to AMC, or I would always go to the Cinema 12, and I never went to the AMC. When I went to the AMC there, I think it was an AMC or a Lowe's.
It was an AMC.
But we went there and it was darker. It wasn't very well lit.
No.
It was off a highway.
Yep.
It felt kind of Kevin Smithy. It felt kind of like grimy, and it was fun to be in that experience. And I'm like, thank God we saw Dogma last, because End of Days, as you probably know, spoilers, is a huge disappointment.
Yeah,
because it was supposed to be Arnold's comeback, and it was just kind of not great. I mean, Gabriel Byrne plays the devil, which is cool, but even a bearded Arnold could not have saved that movie.
No.
Which, he did save the world, though.
Yeah.
But it was funny because I was also like, ooh, religion!
We'll
see the apocalypse
back
movie.
to back, yeah.
And back then I was also really I was really into religion and philosophy and theology, and I was very Christian at the time. And so I was like, Dogma, boom. And having seen Dogma, I was like, wow, this speaks to the level of, my mindset, where I am at the time. Clerks was, I'm identifying as a person, and I'm discovering what kind of person I want to be. Mallrats was who cares? And then Dogma was this, I'm actually trying to discover and explore my religion, and Dogma kind of helped me focus it a little bit better. And that was kind of interesting, because as I said to a particularly very special person who we'll get to later in the show, one time I said, every new Kevin Smith movie seems to be my favorite, because he is kind of in the same headspace that I am in at the time.
Yes.
That would change drastically as the View Askew universe would come to a close.
Yeah.
But, for a little while, that was a true statement. What about you? You said Dogma was your first
technically the first one. It was the first. Technically, it's the first Kevin Smith movie, but really, it's
Jay and Bob Strike Back. But did you see Dogma again and then have a better, deeper respect for it?
I have seen it since. I do have a much deeper respect for it. I enjoyed it much more on a second viewing, especially, I don't know, something about seeing Jay and Silent Bob first.
Yes.
Or, not first, but, seeing that and then watching it again. I don't know, it gave me a better idea of what not even just what you were into, but, just this whole universe as a whole.
Yeah.
It's so funny, too, because Jay and Silent Bob is really a culmination of all these other things.
Yes.
And if you go into that, you have no idea, but it still works.
Mm-hmm. I always wondered if Jay and Bob Strike Back works for non-View Askew universe fans.
I think it depends on the person, but for me, it really hit. I was like, this is awesome. I love everything about the humor.
Yeah.
I love these, two, friends,
mm-hmm.
making their way,
right.
for the most ridiculous reason possible.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved Jay and Bob Strike Back. For me, by that point, I had seen all of them. I had seen, and then, of course, later on, I would discover Chasing Amy.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I was kind of avoiding it, and then finally one day I just went to the Easy Video, and I grabbed it, and I watched it alone in my darkened bedroom. And I was like, this really is good. This really affected me. I was like, this is... Because at that point, I was in a long-term relationship
right.
with a person of, mental questionability. And it was interesting to see that kind of level of, depth in relationships and, challenging conventions and getting into what you want out of life and how you reconcile that with a person you're sharing your life with. And I was like, that's really fucking cool.
Yeah. And
that really affected me as well. And it didn't, it's not like each time I saw a Kevin Smith movie, I would turn on a dime and be like, that's what I'm interested in now.
Right.
It was more like it informed the person that I was growing and developing into.
Yeah.
So, by Jay and Bob Strike Back, that was just it came out August 2001, and, yeah, saw it in theaters and was super excited for it. I remember, it was the fledgling days of the internet. They released a fan trailer. It was just a Kevin Smith trailer, but, he cut it and put it out. And, it was just all the references at once in, a 30-second window. And I'm like, this is really going to be great.
Yeah.
And indeed it was, and I had a great time. There were a couple of things there were a couple of missteps for me. Will Ferrell was, the Jar Jar Binks of that movie for me at that point.
You know what, though? Because I didn't know what came before, I had no problem.
Right. He's grown on me.
Yeah.
And in fact, all of his deleted scenes are funnier than the stuff that he's in, but for me, I was like, what are we doing? And it was actually, for me, it wasn't even a Kevin Smith thing, it was a Will Ferrell thing. I was starting to come to the realization that the rest of the world was, which was like, that's enough Will Ferrell. Like, we've all had enough of you.
That's fair.
So, that was kind of fun. But yeah, the movie itself, Jay and Bob, was fucking great.
Yeah.
Like, really funny, and I think works on a legitimately humor level. It's not just like, you need to know who these people are. It helps, because like, I remember reading a Roger Ebert review of Jay and Bob, and he could not keep the character straight. And he was like, so at one point, we meet Brody, but then he grows a big beard and shows up, and he calls himself Banky. And I'm like, that's the actor. He plays 2 different characters. The fuck, Roger. Just read a goddamn pamphlet. Like, what is the matter with you?
He couldn't handle it.
He couldn't handle it. I don't know. He was like, it's not very good. And I'm like, well, you don't really know what's happening.
You don't care. You don't want to pay attention. You already have an idea of what a Kevin Smith movie is.
Yeah, I think every, like, legitimate critic who has seen any Kevin Smith movie is like, well, I saw Clerks and it was fantastic and transcendental. It changed it was like Slacker, in as much as like it changed the genre,
right?
And it changed film because it gave a voice to people who didn't think that they like could make a movie,
right?
And then he made all these other movies, and they're like, well, now we're just watching Kevin Smith, the artist, be creative, and I don't like that. Like, I like when Kevin Smith's trying to set the world on fire, not trying to entertain me.
Right.
And so I have no stock in critics at that point. But,
yeah. No, I guess going into it, like, what really helped was, it was a larger scale movie.
Yes.
And the references they made that weren't to the View universe. Mm-hmm. And Mark Hamill.
Right. Oh, that was
yeah. Because I was a huge Star Wars fan, so that immediately gave it credit to me. Because I was like, you got Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you acknowledge it on screen.
Yes.
That's cool.
That's it. That's like, I was like, that, I mean, I know it's like by the end, but like, that was like the icing on the cake. Yeah. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
What next? And what's funny is there was no what next.
No.
Like, I didn't know where to go from
Right,
there.
yeah, you didn't have any Kevin Smith fans hanging out with you.
Yeah, I really didn't.
Like, oh, well, if you liked that, you'll love The Prelude.
Exactly.
You'll love this dark comedy about lesbians.
I did. I like Chasing Amy. I do like Mallrats.
Yeah.
Like, the more I see it, the more I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And Clerks I like.
Right. But it's not a religious experience for you.
No.
That's fair.
There's another one, but we'll get to it.
Yes.
That is much more for me.
Right, definitely. So you got Clerks. Mallrats I liked. Mm-hmm. When I first saw it, I'm like, this is stupid. And then the more I saw it, the more I enjoyed it. But, like, the more I see it, the more I see the strings. Like, I see the flaws, and I'm like, I see what you're doing, where you're going with this, and how you're getting your feet wet, and it's like, man, if only you would just... They released a director's cut of Mallrats on DVD, which we have, and I hate that I have it, because it's so terrible. Because it's just, like, 40 minutes longer.
And I don't even remember if I've seen that.
It's not great, and it's not cleaned up. Like, they just threw like the raw scenes in, so it's not even like a fixed version. It's just like, here's the movie with all the deleted scenes in it, and it's like, no, there's a whole alternate opening that is just not funny, and it's like, I know what that is. That's the real ending, or the real beginning rather, of Mallrats, the one you watch that you see in theaters or you see on Blu-ray. Where it's just about the cousin Walter and the cat in his ass. Like, that is a purely Kevin Smith opening. That's a legitimately funny moment.
Yeah.
The opening that he did originally, which involved like the governor's ball and like a failed attempted assassination, like bedroom farce moment. It was Kevin Smith trying to write something else, and this is a thing that I wasn't really conscious of at the time, and I wasn't really conscious until just this moment, which is when Kevin Smith says, "I'm going to make a Kevin Smith movie," or "I'm going to make a movie that I have a voice I'm going to make a movie that I have a point to make with." He usually does not go astray, but when he tries to do something that is emulating somebody else, for whatever reason, it does not reflect on me. Like, I am really against it.
Okay.
And that opening was like, I'm going to try to do Animal House, and it just falls flat. The jokes aren't there. He doesn't believe in them. You can tell no one believes in what they're saying. It's just dark and dead. And then later he'll do it again when he saw like Judd Apatow was making movies, and he's like, these are basically my movies, but an hour longer. What the hell? I'll make a Judd Apatow movie. And when we first saw Zack and Miri make a porno, I was like, no.
Yeah, that movie, like, it's... The first time you see it, if you're used to Kevin Smith movies...
It is just like,
it's
no.
jarring.
Yeah.
The second time you see it, I felt it was better.
It got better.
Because I already knew
where it was going.
Where it was going to do. And, like, I was like, okay, this is not a Kevin Smith movie. And it was better.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's one of his stronger ones, but, like, he does get spectacular performances out of people.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Brendan Routh and Justin Long.
That's fun. But I don't believe that anything that they said that was hilarious was written by Kevin Smith. I think that was all they wrote.
It doesn't matter. Like, not all directors can allow an actor to do that. You know, like, that does take, you know, some level of, like, direction and some level of creativity, you know, to be like, no, go for it. Like, we've heard Kevin Smith talk about, was it Chasing Amy? When they were doing...
Oh, the swing set scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, like, how Ben Affleck was trying to, like, riff and, like, you know, improv, and it just wasn't working. Hank had to be like, you gotta
stop. Yeah. Well, he was also a real stickler for the script. He's like, I wrote these.
Right.
These matter to me.
Right, but it's not just that. Like, his reasoning was, like, that's not what this scene is.
Right. It's not a funny scene. It's not a scene for you to, like... For you to display, it's not a resume or a reel for you. This is a scene in a movie that I'm writing and directing now that, like, is telling a story that I want to tell.
Right.
Not an opportunity for you to showcase or showboat.
Yeah, and for me, so, like, even if, like, yes, I am 100% more willing to give credit where they've written it, yeah, but, like, still being able to step back and be like, okay, what they're doing right now is really working.
Right.
And, like, maybe I'll give some notes or whatever, but to, like, be like, no, go for it, or be like, we gotta stop. I think is still a strong... credit to a director.
In Dogma, there's a moment where they had a line for Rufus, Chris Rock's character, in which Linda Fiorentino or Bethany says to Rufus, "You knew Christ," and his line is, you know, "Brother owed me $12."
Yeah.
That was not the line. It was actually some other line that was in the script, and I think it was just like, you know, yeah, or, you know, some other kind of joke. But he was... when he was doing the commentary, he's explaining, like, it just wasn't a good joke or wasn't a good line. And so I said, like, Chris, try something else.
Yeah.
And Chris went, oh, everybody, Kevin's letting me do a line. Like, because even when he was making Dogma, he's like, stick to the script, assholes. But he's also like, I've got Chris Rock here. He will come. And he, boom, had a way better line. So occasionally that will work. But I liked it in the vacuum. It's almost like whenever I talk about, like, comic book editorial and how it's like, too much editorial control will... asphyxiate your book, but enough will put you in a box that you will become creative in and crawl out of in a hopefully better way. Yeah. And in, like, Kevin Smith's rigid View Askew universe environment, he's like, I'm telling this story, we're creating this thing, it's come from up here, you're gonna say the things that I want, and if it comes out right, it'll be like Shakespeare. Like, Ben Affleck can deliver Kevin Smith dialogue without it sounding really stilted. Yeah. Some other people, Jeremy London, for example, cannot deliver Kevin Smith dialogue without it feeling, like, hollow and weird. But it's kind of interesting because I remember back, like, a long time ago, back when Dogma came out, I'm like, Ben Affleck is a good actor, and I remember getting real shit for it. People being like, you are full of crap. And I'm like, you watch Chasing Amy and you watch Dogma, this motherfucker can act. And people give me a real hard time about it. Now the dude's the Academy Award winner.
Right, exactly.
But back then, I was like, whoa. But, you know, but Zack and Miri Make a Porno, that was like after the View Askew kind of renaissance. He had already decided to stop making those movies. Yep. We were talking about Dogma and Mallrats. Chasing Amy, what'd you think of Chasing Amy?
You know, I think I've only seen it once. And the impact that I have from it is that it was good.
Right. But you don't need to see it anymore.
No, I would watch it again.
There are some movies like that are really, really great that I'm like, I don't need to see that again.
Right, no, I would watch it again just because I like the View Askew universe. I like visiting there sometimes, and I don't always visit the same place.
No, it's true.
I wouldn't mind going back there again. It's just, it didn't resonate.
Interesting. For me, that is the most Jersey of his trilogy. Yeah. Or of the movies.
I can see that.
For me, because you can identify the locations that he shot in. Some of them aren't even there anymore. The Marina Diner, for example, they could steamrolled it and put another diner there. Yeah. The swing set scene that's from the show. Jack's Music Shop, a lot of Red Bank is in there. But there's a lot of, like, identifiable, like, landmarks. Yeah. That you're like, this is a Jersey movie. And, like, even though no one in that cast is from Jersey, they're all, like, really they're really trying hard, and it really feels, like, real. And for me, it's well shot, it's really brilliantly acted, and they tried things that like really spoke to me and my sensibilities as, like, a filmmaker. Like the scene where they're in the train station. Okay, it's not a very memorable scene, but it's a scene where you know, they're going to I think a Comic-Con or something like that, and they didn't have either the permission to shoot in a train station or it's too loud or whatever.
Right.
But they just didn't shoot in a train station. It looks just like one, but it's not a train station at all. And they just hung like a track thing, and then they shot like a moment where Affleck picks up a payphone, and just as he picks up the payphone, a train rolls by. Like the window, and it was just one of those moments where they're like, "Holy crap, we got the train in the shot! It looks like we're at the train station!" And I'm like, "That's really cool."
Right.
And it really speaks to that moment of like, we've got 3 cameras and 4 actors.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can make.
Yep.
And how well we can make it. How we can elevate production values by cutting corners or trying different things.
Right.
I love that. And
it's like that moment from Super 8 with the kids and the
train
when they're training. Yeah, when they're shooting the scene.
Oh, yeah. They're like, it'll be great. It'll be great production value. Yeah, exactly. I thought you meant like, it's a scene in Super 8 when the kids are all by the train and then it explodes and there's a huge action sequence.
Not what I meant.
Okay. No, it's true. You can't just start pulling Super 8 references. I don't know that movie like the back of my hand. I can't just be like, oh yeah, Super 8, right, exactly. It was fine, but like I wasn't like, oh.
Oh, well, fine. And that's what it made me think of.
It was good. I'm not saying it's bad. So from there, we talked about Jay and Bob Strike Back, but that's for me. That was the first time that Kevin Smith like said out. Well, actually, it's funny. The second time that Kevin Smith said out loud, "I'm going to do X," and then just straight up didn't. At the end of Clerks, if you watch Clerks all the way through the credits, at the very end it says Jay and Silent Bob will return in Dogma, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And it's great to notice after Dogma, where you're like, you were working, and it turns out he's been writing Dogma since he was working on Clerks.
Right.
And, like, he had every intention of using those 2 characters. I'm like, really?
Yeah, but still, that was a good call.
Oh, yeah, no, he was not ready, and it didn't
and he wouldn't have been able to get the financing for it anyway.
It just wouldn't have been a good movie. But it's funny that even back in, like, 1994, the dude was like, I'm gonna do this, and then he just doesn't.
Yeah.
But after all those things, then he makes Jay and Bob Strike Back, and he's like, this is the end for me. I'm not gonna make any more of these movies.
Right.
I'm done with this universe, and I want to make more mature films. And I think he wanted to, like, branch out into, like, being, like, a studio director.
Yeah.
And,
try something different.
Try something different. You know, I did this, and I make the money that I make. And it's funny because from there, he built a really, really rabid fan base. And I think he's still drawing from that fan base even today. But, like, he created 4 movies that resonate with people on very, very fundamentally different levels, you know? Mm-hmm. Dogma's a religion-based reaction. Chasing Amy is a relationship-based.
Yeah.
Mallrats is a hobby/like nerddom base.
Yeah.
And Clerks is kind of like the most visceral, like human base, but it's also like the counterculture base.
Yeah.
And then you got Jay and Bob Strike Back, which is just like, now we've had our fun, or we've gone through these journeys. Now let's just have a good time.
Yep.
And like kind of throw a big bash. And it really it felt like a great relief for me, but I was also like sad to see it go. And then of course at the end he like has God close the book.
Yeah.
And you're like, and I'm like, are you really gonna end this? And I was thinking like maybe he won't, because at that point the Clerks cartoon show came out in 2000.
Yeah, and I know it's not a movie, but it
is worth mentioning that I loved that show.
Oh my god.
And I was so sad.
Was it 6 episodes of it?
There are 6 episodes. They aired 2 of them.
Yep.
I loved that show.
Yep.
I remember I was really upset by it because like he was like, we're doing a cartoon show, and by that point the internet was prevalent, and I'm like watching all this shit, and I'm like absorbing all this information about the cartoon. Like he's uploading like sound clips that you could listen to from the show, and art, and I loved the design of the overall design and aesthetic of the Clerks cartoon show. I love that aesthetic of the show and the characters. But then when the first episode aired, which of course was the second episode, which was a clip show of the first episode, we not only was it confusing, it was the 4th episode. The first episode they showed was the trial episode.
Yeah. Which
made no sense.
Nope.
And I didn't know what the hell was happening, but I thought it was funny, but I was also like, oh, it's not Clerks.
Yeah.
It's not a real cartoon. It's not like an anime or a show about like people.
No, it's just...
It's not even like Venture Brothers. It's just, it's a bizarre, off-the-wall, like...
Yes.
Family Guy-esque show.
Yes, it's far more humorous in its intent than Clerks was.
Right.
Like, Clerks is funny, but not because it's trying to be...
It's not doing it for gags.
Yeah, it's
although
not doing
it was
bits.
Occasionally. But yeah, it wasn't like bits.
Yeah.
But
it's still, like, the Clerks cartoon show is still
Still fantastic.
One of my favorite entries into the Kevin Smith.
That's true.
Like whole thing. Like I love it.
Yeah, I love that show. I watched the 4th episode first, and then of course they showed the 2nd episode, which is a callback clip show to the 1st episode, which never aired. Mm-hmm. And then they promised the Motaba episode, and then it never came. And then instead, like 2 Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place came on or something like that.
Oh my god!
And that was it. And I was like, what the crap? And Kevin like went on like his blog and was like, it's over. They canceled the show.
The Motaba episode is one of my favorite episodes.
I know, and I'm like, I think if they'd aired that show, people might have really liked it.
That's the episode to show.
And that's the episode to show. There's a lot of good episodes in that.
I am Big Mac.
I am Big Mac, the beloved constable and best friend of Ronald McDonald. The other one that I think is the best one to show is the Little League episode.
Oh my god, the kid in the helmet.
Yes, look at him. So amazing. It's such a great show, but it's funny because even that is referenced in Jay and Bob Strike Back. Because when Dante and Randall are there, Dante gives a quip at Randall. He says, "You see, if you were funnier than that, ABC would have never canceled us." And we're like, "What? Are you aware of the show? What's happening?" Then the DVDs came out, and that was actually, it's funny, with the DVDs for the Clerks cartoon show, and in fact the audio commentaries, which I didn't have access to until after DVD became prevalent.
Yeah.
And I bought a whole bunch of them. But there was the Clerks cartoon show was the first place where you could get like audio commentaries, and I watched those. It was the first place that you found Kevin Smith Podcaster.
Yes, that's true.
Those audio commentaries, and in fact every movie commentary that he does is like a prelude to Smodcast and where it will be. The funny thing is, though, if you watch those like Mallrats or more, you really should watch the Chasing Amy one if you want to hear Ben Affleck be hilarious. Because he'll never get Ben Affleck on the Smodcasts.
No. Well, now he's Ben Affleck.
And you'll never get Ben Affleck to be as hilariously open and funny as that, unless you're also listening to the Armageddon sound or audio commentary, where he's just like, "This movie sucks and it doesn't make any sense."
I was gonna say, I guess you have.
I've heard snippets from
okay,
it, but it's really funny.
Okay,
but yeah, so from the cartoon show, we had the culmination in the end, and then he goes out and he makes Jersey Girl.
Yes,
which for me might be one of the best movies he's ever made.
Yeah, and that usually gets you in a lot of trouble when you say that out loud. But for me too, like, I love that movie so much. Like that like hit on a lot of levels for me, and like it's just that was one of the 2 times that a movie that Kevin Smith made hit me at the right point.
Yes, yeah. At that point, it's funny, if I had caught it later in life, I would have had a very different reaction to it. Still a positive, but like having caught it at that point, it was very interesting. It was about, like finding your place and giving up the life that you thought you wanted in order to get the life that you need. And I was going to school in Virginia, and I was dating the wrong person, and I took her to see it in New Jersey. I was like, I gotta see this in New Jersey. So I'm in New Jersey and realized like what I was doing with my life, and it was fucking nuts. Shortly thereafter, I decided to play Brody on Halloween. And this is a quick aside story, but I was playing Brody on Halloween, and I had my parents, for whatever reason, had like suede jacket just like Brody, and I'm like, this is great. All I need is the shirt, which they conveniently sell at Jay and Silent Bob Secret Stash, 35 Broad Street, Redmond, New Jersey. But you find that I wanted the shirt. I bought it off their website, and then I ordered the shirt, I think like in the beginning of October, being like, it'll definitely get here before Halloween.
Yeah, you're prepped, yeah.
And it got to be like October like 27th or something, and I'm like, shirt's not here. And I asked the mailing room, because I was in college at the time, and the mail room's like, hey, like, we don't have it. And so I'm like, should I call like the stash and ask them where it is?
Yeah. And
so I called, not the stash, but the company that deals with the all that stuff.
Right.
And I got this kind, like little old lady. So immediately I was off the defensive and went into like, negotiation mode.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. Cause I was ready to be like, where the hell is my shit?
Right.
But I'm like, oh, a nice old lady. Hi. Hi, I'm looking for my shirt, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, yeah, actually it went out about a week ago. You should be getting it in the next day or so. It's like, so if I had exercised patience, it would have just arrived. But instead I was like, she's like, it'll arrive in about a day or so. And I'm like, okay, thanks. And she goes, yep. So, what's your favorite Kevin Smith movie? And I'm like, this is fun. What a cute little, job. Like, okay, everybody who works for Kevin Smith has to ask what their favorite movie is, and then they write it down. They send it to Kevin, and then he goes, no. she goes, "What's your favorite Kevin Smith movie?" And I go, you know, it's honestly right now like and I told her about how like every Kevin Smith movie hits me at the right time, and I'm like,
Right.
so right now it's Jersey Girl. And she goes, "Yeah, I think that's my son's favorite. Like I think that's my favorite movie of my son's too." And I'm like, "Your son?" She's like, "Oh, hi, I'm Grace, and I'm Kevin's mom." And I'm like, "What? Kevin makes you work in the mailroom?" And she's like, "Yeah, like Kevin make like I needed like." Because at that point, her husband had just died, and and I was like, "Listen, I know this is kind of bizarre." Because she goes, "No, my fans are like, or my son's fans are very like intimate and know everything about my son's life." And I'm like, "Listen, I know that you know this might seem weird, but like I'm sorry for your loss." And we wound up like talking a lot about like her husband and their family, and she talked about and she asked me about my family, and like she got into movies again, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm shooting a movie right now. It's at home." And she's like, well, like, you know, and she gave me some ideas and some thoughts and, you know, told me a couple of anecdotes. And it was just overall just and so about an hour into this conversation, I realized that I've been talking to Kevin Smith's mom for an hour. And I'm in my dorm, and like my roommate came in, and he's like, "Get up, what are you doing on the phone?" I'm like, "I'm talking to Kevin Smith's mom." And so, you know, she's like, "Well, anyway, like have a great time, you know, remember the family and God bless." And I'm like, "Okay, thanks a lot, bye." Hang up, and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Well, that was fucking neat."
Yeah.
So, you know, a couple days go by, and sure enough, my shirt arrives.
Yep.
I tear it open, and inside the package is a little Dogma card featuring Buddy Christ, much like your shirt. And I go, "Oh, that's cute." They must, and once again, another leap in line. They must throw in after purchases for $20 or more a little something. Flip it over, and it's a little postcard with a special note from Grace Smith that says like, "What a lovely time talking to you," you know, blah blah blah, like, you know, Kevin, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter what it says.
Right.
It was very sweet.
But that means she's a liar.
Yeah, it means that she had that thing, and she was like, "Oops," and then shipped that shit post haste. And then wrote, like, you know, love God or whatever, Grace Smith. And I'm like, that is so sweet. That is really cool. What helped was just, like, not knowing it was her and just being like, "Yeah, fucking whatever, old lady."
Yeah.
That threw me off, though. And then we just, and I let her, you know, lead the conversation. And so I have that little postcard. It's in my Clerks, the cartoon show DVD case somewhere over here. And actually, I don't know where the hell it is, but it's nearby. I didn't lose it.
Yeah, no, it's somewhere.
And then when we met Kevin Smith in 2006, I brought it with me, and I'm like, "Hey," and I told him that little anecdote, and he shared another anecdote about his experience with her, like, writing little notes. Oh, shit. Well, here it is. This is the card.
I was
This
like,
is
I
the
see
note.
it right down there behind you.
And so I brought it, and I'm like, "Hey, listen, do you mind signing this?" And so he read it. He got a little misty. He told us this story, like, not a story, but like an anecdote about how when he was a kid, his mom used to write notes to him on a paper towel, which is exactly how my mom used to write notes to me. She'd be like, my mom would write things like, "Don't forget to mow the lawn," or "Don't forget to study for your fucking test because you're always failing."
It was.
But
it wasn't like, "Hey, you're great."
No, she would write things like, "Good luck in school today, Tiger," because that was her nickname for him.
Yeah.
And so he tells the story, and he's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh, that must have been kind of embarrassing." He goes, "I mean, you know, when I was a kid, I took that shit, threw it away immediately, but now I wish I saved them."
Yeah, so you made him feel really bad.
I made him feel really bad, and he was like, "Yeah, I lost my dad, and I threw away all my mom's little notes, and I see that she wrote you a note."
And that makes me wish I had a note.
Yeah, and then he wrote, "Yes, that's my mom."
Yeah.
Like, thanks. How bizarre. But yeah, so Jersey Girl means a lot to me as as an adult and as a person and as a burgeoning adult at that point. And fucking once that song Jersey Girl by Bruce Springsteen / Tom Waits comes on, like, I was just gone.
Aw.
That was amazing. Then he made I think what was the next one? I think it was Zack and Miri.
No, it was Clerks 2.
No, it was Zack and Miri, and then he made Clerks 2.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
I think it's the other way around.
Was it?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I thought it was. Because we saw Clerks 2 with Jason.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Jason's a guy who would have been on this channel a long time ago. Let me see here. Filmography. It was Clerks 2, yeah. All right, so then immediately after the failure of Jersey Girl, and I hate to say it, but it was.
It wasn't. People didn't like it.
People didn't like it a lot, and it was mostly because of Bennifer, which is the thing you don't know.
But not just that, but it also came off the heels of Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
So it's like you go from one extreme to
another. It was not bad.
Yeah. For me, just going back really quickly to Jersey Girl.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love that he had Carlin and Dogma. But Carlin and Jersey Girl...
He's, like, perfect. He's an amazing...
It's a dream come true. It's a dream team right there.
So great.
So, anyway, get.
I mean, that movie is great. Like, he got an Academy Award winning cinematographer for Jersey Girl.
Yeah.
Like, everything just looked... like above the grade.
He got Will Smith.
He got Will Smith. They got Will Smith to show up for like a few minutes.
For a few minutes.
Which actually really works in the narrative. But like, so then he makes Clerks 2, which for me is my favorite Kevin Smith movie of all time.
That is, and that was the other one that hit me at the right time.
Yep.
And
absolutely the right time.
I could watch that in a movie anytime.
Mm-hmm.
I love the complete expansion of the Clerks universe from that. Like, having seen Clerks, I like Clerks. I totally understand like the impact it has on people. I completely get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't believe just how well, in my opinion, he went and took that and then like grew.
Yeah.
And like because he grew with it, because he says like that was where he was at
right.
that time.
Yeah.
And first of all, the casting of like Rosario Dawson, like,
yeah, she's great,
beyond perfect.
Yep.
Everything that is comical hits for me.
Yep.
Everything that is meant to be like heartwarming or serious, like, yeah, it hits as well.
Yeah.
There's a donkey show.
Right. How can you how can you avoid that?
How could you forget Kinky Kelly and the Sexy Star?
Yeah. I like all the jokes around it more than I like the idea of a donkey show.
I don't necessarily, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
But like, they did it.
No, but they did it. And that's true.
They didn't just talk about it.
No.
They then delivered it.
It's almost like taking anything that the guys from Clerks would talk about, like the Dante and Randall would discuss, and actually making it happen, which is really funny. That movie it looks great. It's well shot.
Yes.
But the relationship between Dante and Randall for me is like, I never thought I'd ever see anything like that again.
Yeah.
And that was fucking awesome.
Yeah. That was...
And it means a lot to me now, and it still does. And it's like it's just very thoughtful. And I wish that he would. I thought we were on a new path. I thought like after Jersey Girl, he's like, okay, well that didn't work. But it's like that doesn't mean don't make those things.
No.
That just means that didn't work.
Yeah.
But okay, he wanted to make Clerks 2, and it's like, okay, cool, make Clerks 2. Then I thought like maybe we'll go back to the View Askew universe, but in a new light.
Right.
You know, like maybe we could see like a Chasing Amy 2. We wouldn't call it that. We call it something else. But like be something else, just like more. But in that universe, but in a kind of funny way, because it's like, you know, he closed the book on the View Askew universe in as much as like, we're making references to Cousin Walter, and Brody is Randall's cousin, and like there's all these different members of the Hicks family that all look like Dante, and like, you know, there's a lot in the View Askew universe that's like self-referential and jokey and comic booky. With respect to the View Askew universe in Clerks 2, it's about these characters that you know about, but we don't see like. Brody doesn't show up. You know, it's not like there's no real crossover. It's just the actors show up, like Jason Lee's in it, Ben Affleck's in it, and they're both hilarious. But instead of just being like, oh, and then Banky shows up or Holden shows up and he teaches some lessons. Instead, it's Elias and Becky and like they're new characters, and they prove that Smith has new characters to use. Like he has the ability to create new characters that are unique and fun. And
can interact with previously established characters.
And it still works.
Because the Elias Randall relationship is something that like I didn't even know I would have wanted.
Yes,
but
I
like
love seeing that. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Clerks 2 was fantastic, and then he goes and makes...
Hang on. Clerks 2 also has a spectacular, like, dance sequence.
Yeah!
He does a whole dance sequence.
That's true.
And it's amazing. And, you know, for me, that could have been the closing of the View Askew universe.
That's true.
Would I love to see a Clerks 3? Maybe.
I think he said that was going to be it.
Yeah.
We know that's not true, but
no, we never... Like, you never know, but, like, that... is a perfect ending.
Yes.
For me. To, like, that whole... Like,
with the last shot and playing Misery. And
yeah.
We ended in the quick stop.
Yeah, it's perfect. And, like, Jay and Bob are great.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny, like, Jay and Bob in their 40s, when you say it out loud, it sounds pathetic.
Yeah, but
and frustrating, but thankfully they don't age horribly, so, like, they look really good.
No,
But their inclusion works.
Their inclusion worked. I mean, he also grew those characters. Like, Jay, much like his actual real world counterpart,
he grows
is cleaned up and like he's not doing drugs anymore, and it produces one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, and has ruined that song. Like,
yeah, Goodbye Horses.
Like, I used to be, oh, that's Silence of the Lambs, and now I'm like,
oh,
no, that's Jay in the parking lot.
yeah, that's true.
And that ending for me, where they like flip the script on what typically happens at the end of a View Askew movie, where like if we look to Bob for advice and he speaks, to take that and then to be like, no,
like it robs them of their catharsis. It robs like Randall needs to be able to come up with like a solution, because it proves that Randall is a person who has dreams and hopes as well.
Right, but I like that because I think it just shows just how far the universe has grown.
Yes, yeah, we don't need Bob anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Which is convenient.
Yes.
We'll see what happens.
Exactly.
But, okay, so then he makes Zack and Miri, which is like a Judd Apatow ripoff. It works. It's still pretty funny.
Yeah, and it has, like, I'm telling you, for me, like, and we already talked about this, but, like, Justin Long, Brandon Routh, like...
so great.
Early on, stole the whole movie from me.
Ripped the whole movie out of its clutches.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Banks is fantastic. She's great. And that's all I could say about it. It's solid. It's a pretty solid movie, but when I first saw it, it felt really ingenuine.
Yes.
But I'm glad to say that I think it has legs. I'm sad also to say that is the point in which Kevin Smith ceased to be the Kevin Smith that I had grown up with.
Right, but he does then make one more movie that I do kind of like. Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Yeah.
So he makes Zack and Miri. It doesn't do well financially, or it makes its money back, but it doesn't make Judd Apatow money.
No.
And he, like, I guess at that point he's like, I guess I'm not Judd Apatow. Like, I guess he didn't learn from me, or maybe he learned too much from me and he became better than me, or whatever. But he lost it over the fact that it financially doesn't commercially work.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that we released a comedy on Halloween and what the fuck. But whatever. So we have this change, and that's when Smith discovers the joy and beauty of cannabis, and he climbs into a reefer cocoon and emerges the smodcasting podcaster.
And he hasn't even really emerged.
He's never really come out of it.
No.
I am a huge Kevin Smith fan. I love the man himself. Done a lot of I've had a lot of fandom for him. But the direction he went in is one that I can't. He's went in a path I can't follow. He went on a journey.
Seriously?
Yeah, he literally, legitimately episode 3'd it up. I'm sorry. He's making these other movies, and I had some hope when he made Red State.
That's the last one he makes.
That's the last one where I'm like, yes.
Yes. What a rebirth of what it is you're doing.
Yeah, Kevin Smith's like, I want to make something else.
Yep.
And I'm kind of really sad that he didn't get to do
the other ending.
The other ending.
That, it's funny, like, we saw it I think once.
We saw it on Netflix. It was here.
Maybe we watched it again, I don't know, but every time I think of that, I don't think of the actual
ending. I think of the movie ending that he wanted.
Yeah, I think of that instead, and like for me I'm like, I don't want to watch it again because it's not going to be that. Because that ending, I don't know, it's so awesome.
Yes. The movie ending we get is just we push on John Goodman. He tells us what happens.
By the way, spoilers.
Well, no, no, I'm not even going to spoil it, but just like John Goodman explains the ending.
Yes.
That's not an ending, and it almost is like, we went on this crazy fucking journey, and then to have the rug pulled out from under us with like with the character sits in a chair and then talks at the camera and tells us what happens, that sucks.
It does, but it's very Kevin Smith.
Is it?
Well, he put the camera down and have them...
Yeah, but like he doesn't end his movies with the character looking at you and saying this is what happens at the end of the movie.
No.
Like that I felt like he didn't know what else to do.
The closest thing would be essentially Clerks, where it's panning.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they are looking.
But they don't even say anything.
No.
Like he's showing, not telling.
Yeah.
But anyway, the alternate ending for Red State is, for me, the canonical ending. That's how it should fucking be.
Yes.
Awesome idea. Too bad it didn't work out.
Yeah, if you don't know what it is...
Yeah.
Look it up.
He tells you.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. But that said, like, the camera works great, the acting's solid, he makes it on a shoestring budget, he's trying different things, and he wrote a really, really fucking visceral flick that I don't like to watch. Like, I don't like to see those kinds of movies. Like, that's not for me. It's because it's not even From Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn, the first, like, hour, you're like, ugh, I want you to scumbags be scumbags and, like, just ruin people's lives.
Right.
Red State is like a little bit grittier, darker version of From Dusk Till Dawn's opening, and for me, I'm like, I was okay with From Dusk Till Dawn, but only like I'm testing my limits. When we get to Red State, I'm like, I don't want to come here. and watch these monsters.
But that I think it's also a sign of like how the quality of that. And
oh
like
yeah, no, it works. The characters work. The acting works.
John Goodman's so good in that.
Yeah. It's funny. It's the closest thing for me to like what it's like to watch Preacher.
Yeah, I could see that.
To read Preacher.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Preacher's a book that is so visceral and so grotesque and vulgar and awful and amazing and brilliant and transcendental that to try to make it real on an AMC show is to insult its existence. Mm-hmm. And but Red State almost feels like Preacher.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then he does Cop Out, which I didn't fucking see.
No, we didn't.
It's the only Kevin Smith movie I'm like, I'm not going to go see that.
We didn't see it.
He didn't write it. I hate Tracy Morgan. We're not going to go see that movie.
No, we didn't see it.
I won't.
But from that movie, we got amazing stories about Bruce
Willis, which is also really depressing because I love Bruce Willis.
I know,
but it's also like funny because it's fun to hear Kevin Smith like bitch about somebody.
Yeah.
But that's stage Kevin Smith. That's
stage Kevin Smith is amazing.
Yes, I can watch stage Kevin Smith regardless of his.
He can talk about anything. I don't care.
Yeah, but. Yeah, and by the way, I did see Preacher, and I hate it. So that's all I'm going to talk about Preacher.
Yeah, that's it. Moving on.
Cop Out, I didn't see. It's not my kind of movie, and it's not anything that I would ever want to see Kevin Smith make. No. Moving on. So then he does Tusk, which I have seen enough of to say I don't want to watch.
I haven't seen it.
I've seen enough of it. Like I've seen the opening, I've seen the walruses, I've seen the build-ups, like I've seen the Yoko's scene. I've seen enough of Tusk to go, I've never wanted to see a movie like this. I don't want to see a movie like this.
This is where the Kevin Smith that I'm less of a fan of his films shows up, but I admire what he's doing.
Right.
And not what he's making.
No.
But the fact that he's like, I wanted to make this.
Yeah.
So I did.
Right. It's like us when we make a Christmas special.
Right.
Nobody asked for it. It takes a lot of time and money, and nobody watched it.
Right. That's it. But like and this is where the crossover for me between film and stage Kevin Smith really blurs entirely, because like stage Kevin Smith talking about current Kevin Smith movies
is more entertaining than watching his movies.
Yeah, because like he's at a point in his life that I really admire his message, which is like, if there's something in this world you want to see,
do it.
You do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You make it. Don't wait for someone to do it.
Right. Don't wait for someone to find your voice. Use your own voice to tell your story.
Right. Now, like, do I wish he wasn't making movies like that? Yeah, sure. Because I miss the old Kevin Smith movies and the old Kevin Smith universe and, like, just that whole thing.
Yeah.
But from it, we've gotten this, like, whole new, like...
inspirational speaker Kevin Smith.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Every talk I've ever seen that he's done over the last 10 years has been, or 5 years, has been, like, you know... It's been him being a motivational speaker where he's like, no more why nots, just why. Like, or no more whys, why not?
Right, exactly. And like I don't know, like, is that worth it?
Right. More? Is it worth it him making movies that turn a profit? People seem to enjoy.
Yeah.
Not me, but a certain
some
subject.
People do.
He's making flicks that like Reefer Madness Kevin Smith / some of his audience enjoys.
Yeah, exactly.
But my concern, and it comes after Yoga Hosers, is he banking these movies against his credit? Is he like, I make my profit because I'm banking Yoga Hosers against the 4 movies that you really, really like of mine. And it's for me, I think it is a little bit of that.
Yes.
And I'm a little worried about diminishing returns and like fewer people are on his side.
I think it is, but I think he's also beginning to make movies for his new fans.
Right, but I don't think that the new fans I don't think there's enough.
I think he's trying to.
Yeah, he's reinvented himself in such a way that he's creating something for someone else.
Right.
And that's fine, by the way. Like, there are many artists who evolve past their own audience and then find a new audience. The Max, for example, I loved the art for the Max for the first like 7 or 8 issues, and then he's like, okay, now that I've got you, here's my off the wall shit that I am not a fan of.
Right.
And sorry Sam Keith, but like I don't want to watch. I don't want to read that shit.
ComicPOP fan. Yes, Sam Keith.
Naturally, Max creator Sam Keith is a huge fan of our channel. But I listen. More power to him. At least there's some measure of Kevin Smith that I can still enjoy and absorb. Like, I love motivational speaker Kevin Smith. I like podcast Kevin Smith.
Yes.
So if I can't, it doesn't ruin what he's already done.
No.
It doesn't change his influence on me as a fan and as a movie viewer.
Right, and he is still doing things he wants to do.
Exactly.
And that's very obvious.
Yeah.
Like, Tusk, as we found out, was really, like, barely, essentially a dare in a weird way.
Yeah, but he dared us to go see it. That's really more what happened.
Right, and Yoga Hosers is really for him.
Yeah.
And, like, as much as Clerks 2 was about friendship and family to some degree, and, like, what the
Yoga
meaning...
Hosers is about family.
It's about family, and not just, not, like, family as friends, like, family.
Right, but it's not about...
But not the movie itself. The whole thing behind it.
The production of Yoga Hosers.
Yeah.
Yoga Hosers, the movie, is the result of the real story about Kevin Smith and his family.
Yes.
Like, and that's kind of neat. It's like a very meta-textual movie.
Right. So essentially,
we saw it. By the way.
What I was going to say, if you're going to see that movie, I would recommend you find Kevin Smith talking about it first.
Yeah. Watch his hour-long conversation about
the movie,
Hosers,
and then watch it, because it makes a lot more sense as to why decisions were made and where they come from.
Yes.
That being said, Johnny Depp is in that movie,
and he's hilarious.
He's by far
he's the reason to watch.
He's spectacular.
But that said, it's funny. Apropos my comment about like measuring one thing against another, I believe that there are diminishing returns, because I saw, and this is just evidenced by one example, right? But I think it's indicative of the whole, and here's what it is. I watched a video that was not unlike our experience. We went to the Count Basie Theater. We saw Kevin Smith do his birthday show. He talks for an hour about Yoga Hosers when he brings it out. Yoga Hosers is not out, by the way, yet. It'll be on Netflix eventually, and it'll be out in theaters on Fathom events. But like right now, you can only see it through Kevin Smith's like live shows.
Yes.
He was in Jersey for his birthday. He talks for an hour and then he shows the movie.
Yep.
He does this all over the country, and that's like he's on like a tour.
Yeah.
Then after the movie, he does a Q&A, and most of the time the Q&A is about like Jay and Silent Bob,
and it lasts for 3 questions because
it's like 2.5 questions, and then it gets nowhere.
Yeah.
But I watched a video that was exactly the same thing from a different location, in which he has the Q&A, and the first question is like, I saw your opening speech, and that really fucking meant something to me, and it was really awesome, and I wanted to see the movie that you were talking about, but the movie that I saw was not good.
Yeah.
It was just objectively not a good movie.
Yeah.
And Smith got real hard about it. And, like, I'm not saying, like, the dude, like, melted down, but I'm saying that, like, his behavior was not indicative of the Kevin Smith that I know.
Yes. Like,
so,
like, previous Kevin Smith would have never let this happen.
Never let that bother him. But the fact that it is about family, and the fact that it is about his daughter, and the fact that his daughter is absorbing this information, and that she is influenced by this internet generation, means that he is very sensitive to criticism of hers.
Yes.
And even though he said, and he didn't say like she sucks or like she's not very good, he said the movie wasn't very good, but she is half the movie.
Yeah.
And Johnny Depp's daughter's the other half. Like, it's the two of them, they're the whole movie.
Yeah.
That it's basically, you might as well have just said that she sucks.
Yeah.
Like, and his reaction was like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear a lot of boos.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
I heard,
no, it's not...
I've been at Kevin Smith talks where someone said, like, hey, you suck and your movies are bullshit. The entire room just erupts in defense.
Yeah.
This was not like that.
No.
And I feel like it might be like that more and more, because the next movie is Moose Jaws.
Yeah.
And it's just more of the same. Like,
now,
it's Tusk and Yoga Hosers, and now it's this.
Right, but Moose Jaws is probably going to come off more as a B movie, which attracts a totally different
It will
part
get a
of
different
crowd.
audience.
You know what I mean? So, like, that is a kind of good call on his part.
Right.
Is to try to bring that fandom in that maybe isn't a Kevin Smith fan, but they like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
So-
and you know what? I'm going to see Moose Jaws at some point.
Oh, yeah. I have more interest in that than I did Tusk, just because I know
what I'm getting into
Yeah,
with Moose Jaws.
exactly.
And I know what the result will be with Moose Jaws.
Right, and I know that Moose Jaws wasn't a bet.
Yes. It wasn't just like, can I do this? No, it's Moose... I mean, it is a bet, but it's more like, it's something he wanted to do.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But I'm worried that the collateral is running out, and that, like, by the time Smith is ready to make something that
we
I
care
want to
about,
see,
yeah.
like a Mallrats show, or Clerks 3, which
Yeah.
he's threatened to do for the last 5 years and hasn't even gotten close to making.
I don't think he's in the right place for that.
He's not in any way. Like,
No.
he needs to really, really want to make Clerks 3.
And if he never does, that's okay.
That's fine, because Clerks 2 is so great.
I'd rather have him either be in the right mindset or just never make it.
Exactly. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
But I'm worried that by the time he gets to the places where I want him to be, he won't be able to make those movies. And not because, like, he's incapable of doing it, but because, like,
Right.
he simply can't draw the audience that he used to draw.
Right, now...
Because they're all a little gun-shy. Like, they're like, oh, how many yoga hosers are you going to make, man?
Right, and that being said, he did say that after Moose Straws, there's the possibility, since Mallrats 2 the movie can't happen.
Right, he's doing a show. And he got greenlit by Universal. Like, he can make a Mallrats show.
Right, and he's shopping around, essentially.
I remember when he was working on a hockey movie called Hit Somebody.
Yeah.
He was working on the hockey movie, and here's how the movie evolved. It went, I'm going to make a hockey movie called Hit Somebody. And it's about this, and this. Here's the whole movie. This is what it's about. And it's going to star Sean William Scott.
Right.
Then he's like, no, it's too long a script. I'm going to make 2 movies called Hit Somebody. Like hit somebody home and hit somebody away or something like that. And the movies one will be PG-13, the other will be R. And it'll be like this huge character study. And then Sean William Scott made another hockey movie that was basically the same thing. So then he went, okay, well, I'm going to make a show called Hit Somebody. Because the script is so long that I have to really get into it. So now I'm going to do a Hit Somebody series. And then he didn't do anything, and it fell apart and it's gone. Mm-hmm. And you'll never see Hit Somebody. But, like, this is exactly what happened with Mallrats.
Well, yeah. Except the difference is with Mallrats, he kind of did intend on doing the movie, and then Universal
said he couldn't do it.
Yeah, it was like, no, you can't. You don't understand. That's not how this works. I know you like kind of own everything else, but but you not this.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that instead of, because I could easily see the reaction to this because of the fact that it is so tied to his family, to like someone he cares and loves about. I'm afraid he'll go into a deep depression and not want to do it. But I'm hoping that on the other side of it is, like, Mallrats, the TV show. Yeah. Because he's going to be like, I have to go back to something.
Well, like, you know what's funny? Like, Chasing Amy was a deeply personal movie that he made, right?
Yeah.
It was indicative and kind of like his, of where he was in his soul at the time. And he really made, like, a raw flick. I'm kind of interested if he is really hurt by the Yoga Hosers thing, as we assume it is.
Yeah.
By the way, Yoga Hosers is okay.
Fine. It's not
the worst thing I've ever seen.
No, but it's not
really great.
I'm not rushing out to...
I will never own Yoga Hosers, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I would have seen it at some point.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But the response from critics and from fans alike is negative.
Yeah.
And based on that public thing, I'm worried that Smith is depressed or will be depressed or will be upset by this experience.
Yeah.
But maybe he will have something really, really personal to say.
Like he'll find like the old spark.
Yeah, like he did with Clerks 2.
Right.
Like after failing, which he didn't fail, but like failing after Zack and Miri, maybe after failing or not failing, but like just not getting the response he wanted from Yoga Hosers, he could do like Chasing Amy 2. I'm not saying he should do Chasing Amy, but like something like that.
Right.
Where it's like a deeply personal movie that isn't just like, it's personal to me because I'm putting my daughter in and I want to see her act.
Right.
It's deeply personal to me because I have something really important to say, not just watch Ralph Garman do celebrity impressions. Like, I want to do something really important.
Yes.
Like, that would be really cool. And I think that, like, if he said that to Affleck, he would come back and do it. Like,
yes.
But I'm just saying, like, the emotional Kevin Smith's the Kevin Smith that I like watching. The one who has something to say.
The reason Mallrats 2 can't happen is because Universal owns the rights
to the movie. And they don't want to finance or risk it because Mallrats made $2 million in theaters, which is like fucking nothing. Actually, no, it didn't make $2 million. It cost $2 million or $6 million, and it made like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It didn't. It was a disaster.
Yeah. In
theaters, and so they're like, okay, that was your second movie.
Yeah. And
it made no money, and now you want to make a sequel. Like 20 years later.
Yeah, so they said no to that, and they agreed to the.
But they agreed to the show. Well, they kicked him down the stairs to like Universal TV, and they okay,
exactly.
So we'll see. I mean, like at the end of the day, I love Kevin Smith movies because more often than not they are delightful.
Yes. And
more often than not they inform the person that I have kind of enjoyed and have seen as a little bit of a role model for the better part of my life. And I respect the shit out of the decisions. I might not like everything that he makes, but I damn well respect everything that he does.
Yes.
For the most part. The Reefer thing, I'm like, all right. But like that's
whatever. From that we get a lot of awesome stuff on his podcast.
We do get hilarious podcasts. We got that Aqua Justice thing.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Bleh. That's Ralph Garman.
Yeah, it is Ralph Garman.
But yeah, so I want to thank you guys for watching this episode of Elseworlds Exchange.
Yes.
But before we go, let us know in the comments down below or the comments on this episode, what is your favorite Kevin Smith movie? And if you have a minute, why? And remember that these movies, like movies and art in general, is supposed to elicit an emotional reaction.
Yep.
And while we do have an emotional reaction, doesn't mean that anyone is attacking you personally for having an emotional reaction to something personal.
That's right.
So, keep that in mind when you're interacting with each other in the
Yes.
comments and in life throughout.
Yes.
But before we go, I guess we'll just say thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like this video or this episode and subscribe to our channel, Comic Pop. Visit comicpop.net for even more shows that we do. Stay tuned tonight for an episode of Back Issues that I'm very excited about seeing. It was an episode that I was like, meh. Like, the book I was like, really? We're going to do this? Okay. And then we did it, and I'm like, this is really funny. I'm really happy with it. And it's a little short, so stay tuned for next week when we watch the longest episode of Back Issues yet.
Yeah, that was insane. I was in like the essentially the studio area while they were shooting. I was playing Diablo 3, and
Yep.
I realized that I had accomplished way too much in Diablo 3,
Yeah.
and they were still shooting. And that's when I looked at the clock, and I was like,
Uh-oh.
oh.
I did cut a good 25 minutes out of the...
Wow, a whole 25 minutes.
Yeah. That's a lot.
That is a lot, but that's out of a really long episode.
But
So now it's just a long episode.
it's just a long episode. But thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and we'll see you guys next time. So I am Sal.
And I'm Tiffany.
Bye.